Morning, guys. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm just going to give it a few minutes for people to arrive. We can see the numbers are still climbing. So very welcome to everyone that's already here. But if you do want to use the next couple of minutes just to grab a drink or some kind of refreshment, then now's a great time to do that. And when we come back in a couple of minutes, I'll do some proper introductions. I'll see you in a few minutes, guys. Take care. Hi guys, I can see some more faces have just appeared. So just for your reference, we're not ignoring you. Welcome to today's webinar. We're just giving everyone a few minutes just to finish joining. If you did want to grab any kind of drink or refreshment right now is a really good time, but we'll be back with you in just a few seconds. Okay then, guys, I think we can see those numbers starting to slow down now. So I've kept you waiting for a couple of minutes. So thank you for that. But maybe we'll kick off, and hopefully everyone else can join us as we go on. So again, welcome guys to today's webinar. I'm really pleased today to be joined by Nicky Metcalf Dennis from the DocTech Group. She's done some really wonderful work within the rental industry. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Andy Barnett. I'm the Regional Sales Director for DocuWare right here in the UK. And as I said, I'm joined by Nicky. She's from the DocTech Group, and she's done some amazing work within the rental industry, which she's going to be kind enough to share with us today. For anyone who hasn't used the GoToWebinar platform previously, you'll see the little bar on the right-hand side. This will indicate what we are doing today. If you did want to raise your hand, you'll see how you do that. There's a little hand button showing it going up. However, please don't worry about raising your hand too much today. We do also have the question box, which you'll be able to see on the top right-hand side of your screen. It's indicated by a little square box with a question mark in it. And if you do have any questions today, please feel free to go and add them to that box. I'll be supporting Nicky today, so I'll be looking at those questions as we go through, and we will of course give some time at the end to go ahead and ask those questions. But don't worry, Nicky, I won't interrupt you as you're halfway through your flow. So without further ado, let me pass over to the star of today's show. So Nicky, welcome to today's webinar.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you for your kind words, as always. And thank you all for joining the webinar. Hopefully you will find this beneficial and you'll get plenty out of today's call. So what we're going to look at is why you would automate your invoice processing. What would be the reasons for doing that? I'll then show you a really nice kind of journey of a document through DocuWare to show you some of the functionality available. And then, as Andy says, we can pick up on those questions at the end. So hopefully, as I say, you find this valuable. So why would you automate invoice processing? Why not just continue to work the way you're working at the moment? Historically, processing supplier invoices have been a manual, cumbersome process open to human error and significant delays. With DocuWare, we can automate and streamline the process, ensuring that you and your team are only spending time on the exceptions, where the finance team's knowledge and experience is what really matters, rather than that manual time on those repetitive, kind of low-value tasks. You can see here the kind of journey we're going to go through on the demo today. So by capturing information from invoices and integrating with your rental software or finance packages and other finance systems, we can remove the need for manual data entry, saving your team time and removing any of the errors caused by typing mistakes. We've all been there, right? It's 4 o'clock on a Friday, you've got to get through the work, all of a sudden you're rushing, and that's where errors can happen. We can implement bespoke approval workflows, so invoices are routed automatically to the relevant people, and then issues can be resolved quickly and accurately. We also keep an audit trail behind every document and every workflow, so you have the peace of mind that your process is being followed and that you're compliant. Beyond the process itself, DocuWare can also give you a single source of truth for your documents. With dynamic search features, lists of documents in certain statuses, you can find any document that you need in seconds. This is something, this graphic we created recently, and I really like how it demonstrates what we're trying to achieve with DocuWare. Historically, finance teams have had a lot of people at the bottom of that pyramid processing documents, doing all that manual work, and at the top, few people making strategic decisions that help boost profitability or reduce costs. With DocuWare's automation, you can flip that pyramid around. Less people are spending time on manual processing, which means more time can be spent on strategic, value-driven actions like negotiating with suppliers, identifying bottlenecks, reducing costs, all those things where a human really brings value rather than just doing that manual typing that we can take care of with DocuWare. So really, there's three core things we're looking to achieve. We want to save processing time to free those people up to spend it on more valuable activities. We also want to reduce risks and errors that are caused, through manual working. We use data capture, validation of information to help with that. And then we also want to improve the efficiency of everyday tasks. Just the ability to get to a document in seconds rather than minutes. If you've got to do that 100 times a day, that's really beneficial. And also when audit times come, give them access to your DocuWare, leave them to crack on, and then you can carry on with your day. So nice stress-free audits is what we're looking to achieve as well. So you've got an idea there of what we want to achieve with DocuWare for invoice processing. So let's have a look at what that looks like and how we make that work. Okay. So if I just move over here to my browser, you can see this is DocuWare here. I've got a document viewer over on the side here. We'll be able to see documents as we work on them. This workspace here is going to change based on the different things we do as we take that document on a journey. Pretty much we're going to touch on these different tabs we've got up at the top to talk about different pieces of functionality. But if I want to think about invoice processing, one of the key things people want from us is matching to a purchase order, right? So what I've also got, because we're looking at rental industry today, the people at MCS have kindly given me access to a demonstration environment where I've been able to create and receipt 2 purchase orders. So let's think about this in a real world environment. We've got an order, we've created it for the parts we want, we've then sent that order out to our supplier and we're waiting for the invoice to arrive, which is where DocuWare comes in. So I'm going to come back to these 2 later so you can kind of see the integration as it happens when we work our way through as well. So just keep your eye on those, we'll come back to those later. But if I'm working within the finance team, and I'm sat and I'm at my desk today and I'm expecting a lot of invoices to come in, at the moment, I might be printing things off. I might be going and moving things around by email. What can we do to help with that? DocuWare can capture incoming invoices in a couple of ways, and kind of, various ways really, but a couple of which I'm going to show you today. DocuWare, like many others, have been looking at the applications of AI to boost the performance of software. And when it comes to capturing documents from email, DocuWare can monitor a mailbox, pull incoming documents into DocuWare, identify the types of documents they are, and index them accordingly. So if I jump over now to my email, you'll see here, this is my mailbox, and I've got a little demo folder. For starters, you can see DocuWare has this little button on the ribbon. So DocuWare has a direct integration with Outlook, which allows us to do all these different functions that we're going to talk about. What we want to think about with that monitoring of a mailbox idea is what I can do is I can see here, I've got a load of invoices. There's actually a statement in here. Some of them have multiple invoices attached. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight them all, choose my AI option and click store. Now, obviously we're doing a demo today, so I'm triggering this when I want it to suit for my demo. But actually we would monitor this mailbox live. So as things were coming in, as I mentioned, DocuWare is looking at what arrives, pulling off the attachment, identifying, is it an invoice? Is it a statement? Is it an order? Is it something else? And then applying the relevant data capture model to that so that what can happen, they arrive in DocuWare, fully indexed and ready to move along in the process when we do that. One of the features DocuWare has, you see this little blue category has been added to all these emails now. That's really helpful in terms of I now know they've been stored. I could take a week off work, I could come back in and I can check our accounts at or invoices at email and I can clearly see what's been stored away. A really nice little feature just to help with that overall transparency of what we're trying to do. Okay, so if I now come back to DocuWare, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my finance cabinet and I'm going to look at documents that we've stored today. So we'll talk more about searching later, but just so you can see this, if I now run a search, I can now see all of those attachments have been stored away, with all the associated indexing, all the way down to the values and the information. It's also been able to identify that this was a statement rather than an invoice as well, and pull off the relevant information. Now, you can see I've had some tasks that have been generated. We'll come and look at these in a little while. I've got a couple that are missing order numbers. So what do we want to do about that? I'll circle back to this once we've looked at other ways of storing, but that's how easy it can be. Okay, we can monitor a mailbox, pull everything that comes in. So then we've done that data capture part straight away. This is our first option for data capture, using the DocuWare AI tool to capture from email, classify and extract. However, there's another way if you prefer a bit more oversight to the capture. If I come back to my email now, so let's come and I've got another folder we can jump to. I've got a few more invoices we want to store. Again, we could monitor this mailbox and store these away automatically. We could monitor a subfolder. Maybe you get PO invoices, non-PO invoices. You might have multiple businesses within your organization. They might get stored to different subfolders. Maybe we can monitor those and identify the route we want it to take based on that. So lots of different things we can do with the monitoring of the mailbox. Again, I can see these have been stored away because I've got my nice little blue category on it. In this instance, I'm going to come to my tray. And what we're going to see is DocuWare's intelligent indexing. So rather than DocuWare doing the identification and the capture in the background, this is called DocuWare's intelligent indexing. What it's going to do is it's going to give us the data we want to capture to give your team that oversight when we do that. So what I can do is if I just click store here, I'm going to choose the kind of method I want to store it by, and that will then display that information for me to have a look at. Okay, so what I can do here is I can click on any of these fields. It will show me where it's found that piece of information on the document, and I can then click store and move along with the process. Some people's preference is to have a little bit more oversight. This gives you the benefits of the data capture, but also giving you that opportunity to have a quick look at it before it gets stored away. You'll notice when these arrived in my tray, they've got a little green bar down the side. Okay, this works like a traffic light system. It's gone green, which is telling me it's captured everything I need. I'm happy with that. If it goes amber, it's saying, I'm not too sure about some of these fields. I've captured them, but can you just confirm you're happy? And if it goes red, it's saying, I don't recognize this. I need you to teach me where to find that information. With the AI, what we've done is pre-train that model to be able to capture the information. But when we're storing things through intelligent indexing, it's based on user feedback. Okay, so if this had come in, and let's say some of this information had been missing, let's say this had come in, it had gone amber or red, all I need to do is come over to the document, click on the relevant fields, and it will then add them to the indexing for me. But can you see how these have gone purple? This is how DocuWare learns. Okay, so the more you store documents, the more you click on where the information is, DocuWare will learn, and in future it will know where to capture it from, and it will go green. But it's not a template. Okay, if the information shifts a bit or moves around, DocuWare is intelligent enough to be able to track that movement as well. For example, if this was a really big invoice and this had moved on to a second page, it would still know to look to the end to be able to find those totals. It's not just looking at one specific place. So you've got two options there. The AI, which gives you a more streamlined process, or you've got the intelligent indexing where you still get all the benefits of the data capture. You've just got a couple of steps in where you look at it before you click confirm and store those documents away. Okay, lots of ways in terms of saving time to ingest documents. Now I've mentioned here, I've got a couple of orders awaiting receipt that have come in. These are the invoices that relate to those orders. So all I'm going to do now is just store these away. So you can see I'm doing this through our intelligent indexing method. I can click on any of these fields and just make sure I'm happy with that information before I store it away. You can also see that we capture the line item data when we do that as well. We can also look up additional information. You can see here we've got some supplier codes, things like that stored on the document. And that's something to think about when we're integrating with other systems. For us to post a transaction, maybe they need information that isn't actually on the document. What we can do is look that up in external databases. We could look to your finance package. We could create a database within DocuWare that we look to, and we can add to that information to make sure that you get those valid transactions when you're storing things away. So we've stored our documents from email. We've talked about the ways we can capture from email. We've talked about the data capture we can get from that. What we now need to think about is, well, what happens now? When my invoice arrives, usually my team will open up our finance package and they'll check it manually. They'll maybe pass things around the organization, shout across the office, whatever it would be to then process that invoice. Well, what we can do is automate a lot of those checks and those validations that people are currently doing. I mentioned the tasks earlier, so let's have a think about some of those. One of the first things we do is a duplicate check, right? What I want to be sure of is that we're not processing duplicate transactions, and how can we make sure DocuWare doesn't do that? So here we run a check, have I already stored an invoice that has the same invoice number, the same supplier, and the same total? If I do, tell me I've got a problem. And what I've got here is a task here telling me that we've found a duplicate. Now I can cancel the invoice or I could move on with it, but how do I know? What we have here is something called related documents. Okay, these are documents linked by certain features. And what this one here is telling me is show me the document that created this duplicate. Well, what I can see is actually, yeah, I've already got this invoice, same invoice number, same totals, things like that. And you can see the status on here is showing it as rejected, as future dated. I'll just wait for this to load up so I can talk about it on the document as well. Desperately resisting the urge to keep clicking things as is my want, but we'll give that a second to appear. So what we're doing with a duplicate check is now I can look at the document, I can see that it's appeared, here we go, and I can see the stamp on the document. What I can see is that we have received this previously, they'd sent it future dated, so we rejected it and we requested a new invoice from a supplier. So not only can I see the duplicate, I can see what happened with it, which helps me answer my question. So now when I come back to my duplicate check, I know I can continue because we've got a new invoice, which is a fine from a date perspective, so I can move my way along with that. Thinking about that AI capture we did earlier, I mentioned we had a couple of missing order numbers. Well, here when we've captured the information from the invoices using the AI, we've identified in few of them we couldn't find an order number. And what it's done, it's give me them with a task and a few options. Maybe I reject it and say, no, we only accept invoices that have a PO. Maybe we do have a PO, the suppliers just forgot to put it on. I can add the order number. I might put a comment of, Nicky was slacking off. She didn't put the PO on, but now I've added it, something like that. Get it to run that check again. Maybe it's an overhead invoice, something we weren't expecting a PO for. We can say we're happy to continue. We could also do this based on, say, a list of suppliers where we're not expecting a PO, and then we can carry on with those automatically as well. So missing information can generate tasks with all these different outcomes, and all of this is bespoke to you. So just to be clear, all these workflows, these matching, these outcomes are unique to every client we work with. These are just some really good examples of what we most commonly see. Another example, I mentioned, we stored the statement away, okay? So if we are going to capture lots of different document types, what happens next with those things, and can we automate it? So you can see here, I've captured a statement. We've captured all the lines on the statement, and what we've done is check within DocuWare to see if we've received all those invoices. And what we found is actually we're missing 2. So what DocuWare can do is run that check for you, and then we could email the supplier to say, thank you for your statement. We are missing invoices. These 2, I won't read those numbers out. I ask, can you resend them for me? Again, manual, repetitive tasks that your team are doing that we can use DocuWare to automate as well. So let's come back to some of the kind of rental related invoices that we stored. One of the things we often do when we're checking an invoice is check against the order data. So by accessing your purchase order data, whether that's wherever that may live, we can automate a lot of the manual checks your team are spending time doing at the moment. In this example, we've checked the incoming invoice values against the order values, and we've found a discrepancy. So DocuWare shows me that it's found these lines on my order, and it's just asking me, is that correct? I found these lines on your order, and are these the ones you want to process? All I need to do is click confirm to move along with the order. Again, you're not having someone sitting, opening up a PDF, looking at a printed document, looking at another screen and manually doing that matching. We're just telling them if we find an exception, this is what we think we should want to do, and we're asking for their confirmation to do that, okay? All I'm doing here, like say, if we found this and we couldn't identify the lines, you can see in this table, maybe I could update the quantities or the prices to make sure that we're posting the accurate information into your system. So I'll click confirm with that one. With this automatic matching, we're saving your team a ton of time when it comes to looking backwards and forwards. But as an example of the kind of a real benefit you can get and a lot of the automation we can get, remember at the start for the MCS part of the demo, I stored 2 invoices. Well, we've actually only seen 1 come back to us. If I come to my lists and I look at the documents that we've stored today, what you can see now is that the other one that I stored fully matched The goods were receipted, so it has already exported that over to RM in order to close that transaction. So if we look at this one, we're looking at, this is the moment of truth where we'll see if my integration has worked correctly. If I refresh this page, you can now see that all these goods have been allocated, the invoice has been posted, and that was with no intervention from my finance team. We monitor the mailbox, we capture the data, we check it against the information, and for a nice low value transaction like this, we just post it and close that off, freeing your team up from the time they're spending doing that manual processing, okay? But let's keep thinking about that one where I just did an approval. So think about, yes, it matches the PO, but what if there's other oversight you want, even if it matches the PO? What I'll do is I'm just going to jump to another window. This is the same DocuWare environment, but just logged in as a different user. What you can see now is that that invoice has actually come for an additional approval. Now, I didn't ask it to do this. I didn't tell it. But what DocuWare knows is that this invoice is higher than my approval limit. It has exceeded my approval limit, so it has sent it on to somebody else in our workflow as well. So what now is I've got my line manager has now got this to be able to do their approval to double check if we've got a high value transaction. So you can add other levels of oversight, even if we're matching to a PO. I'll use this opportunity, I suppose, to talk about stamps as well. Every time we do something in a workflow, it will add a stamp to a white space on the document. What this means is not only can you see the document, but you can see who did what and when, and any comments that they left. I could look at this as part of an audit a year later, and I can clearly see not only the document, but the journey that document took as well. If this had loads of backwards and forwards, we ended up with loads of different stamps. The stamps just sit as a layer on top of the document. I've also got the option to add a note on here if I wanted to as well. I could just add a little comment. And again, that would just sit as a layer on top of the document. If I need to share this, I could share it with or without those annotations. Maybe someone wants to know where we're up to. I share it with the stamps. Maybe somebody wants a copy of the original document. I can share it without. You get all the visibility of your workflow on the document, but also with the ability to take it on and off as needed. Every time I do something down here, it will find an empty white space, but I've also got this little stamps button up here as well. Let's say Nick's happy to approve this. It's going to show him the lines, but you'll notice he can't edit them. We don't want random approvers messing with our lines that finance have confirmed. And now I can decide where I want my stamp to go. So maybe Nick decides I'll put my stamp on the bottom down there. So just to show you this from an approval perspective, maybe this person isn't in DocuWare a lot of the time. They'll get a task in DocuWare. We can also send an email notification. So we can give them a reminder that they have a task they need to approve. We can send reminders for those lazy approvers who don't like to get around to approving their tasks. We can also reroute documents to different people after a certain amount of time. Loads of different stuff we can do with the workflow when it comes to those journeys our documents are taking. Okay. So hopefully you've seen there some of the really good examples of how we can automatically match. We can identify discrepancies. So when I mentioned about your team only spending time on the exceptions, this is what we're talking about, okay? In terms of that visibility for your team as well, we also have these lists. These are documents in a certain status. So a task is there's something somebody needs to do, and this is to help with your visibility. I can see here, these are all the documents we're currently waiting to have exported out of our system. Maybe I want to look at all the invoices where we're waiting a credit to come into the organization. At any time, you can set up these lists, again, all unique to you or each individual person's role. They really help with that transparency to be able to see what's happened with documents when we're working on them. I talked about the stamps and the journeys that documents took as well. If I come in, let's look in our MCS demo cabinet at ones we've stored today. If I come at this one where we did all the stamps, if I right click and click on the history, what I can also see is every interaction with that document. Every time somebody has done something to the document, and also every stage of the workflow. These are all things the system is checking, actions the system is taking, and then where a person has intervened to make a decision. So from that compliance, oversight, auditability element, you've got complete visibility of the journey the document is taking. This is uneditable. No one can manipulate this data. It just gives you that real peace of mind that you've got oversight for the documents that you're working on. This one, you can see my second one has been exported to over to my RM environment. So let's do a little refresh here. What's really interesting with this one is this is the one where our actual PO invoice value was lower than the total PO value. So we actually only picked a few lines that we wanted to invoice. What you can clearly see here is it is invoiced and allocated the 3 lines we received the invoice for, and left the fourth line awaiting invoice. Okay, again, without any of that manual data entry. So really powerful in terms of automation. So that's the journey our documents take. We get them in by email, we do our data capture, we check against the PO, and then we export the data at the end to our relevant systems to be able to post those transactions and save your team even more time. But how do we find documents later? Okay, so you've seen me come to this screen a few times. When we store documents to DocuWare, when we're capturing that index data so we can check it and we can export it, we can now also search by any of that information. So I might come in here and say, you know, actually, all I'm interested in is one particular invoice. I could come to that particular invoice, or you can see in this case, it's an order, find that particular document, and I'm fine to carry on with my decision making. But what we can also do is use it dynamically. So maybe I say, I'm only actually interested in seeing invoices, and I'm only interested in seeing invoices from this particular supplier. Now I've got a nice list of all the invoices we've got from that one particular supplier. But I can even narrow that down. I might say I'm only interested in invoices from that supplier that were over £1,000. And now I've got a much smaller list that I want to look at. I might also want to add a date range or a status or all those other things we've got. And I can add and remove these fields to get me to the information I want. You'll notice as well in these result lists, I can sort and filter from this table as well. Really dynamic how we can search for documents. You're not going and opening and closing multiple PDFs, trying to find the information you need and answer the questions you have. Tell DocuWare what you want to see, and it will present you with that information. Okay. One of the other things we can do, this is all great, we can search by our index data. When we store documents to DocuWare, we also store the content of those documents as well. And that's where our full text search comes in. Let's say 6 months ago, we did a job and we used a particular type of washer that we really need to find. And I cannot remember where we bought that from, which supplier or what it was related to. If I put washers in my full text search, it will take me through all my documents and it will show me any document where the word washers appears as well. So you can see I could look at some of the invoices we've got, some of the purchase orders we've stored, and I can now see where we bought that from, where that information is, what we paid last time, and easily find that. You could use that for a vehicle reg number, a person's name, a location. If you can remember something about a document, you'll be able to find it in DocuWare, even if you can't remember all that index data. All really powerful if we're working in DocuWare, right? So we're in DocuWare, we've got access to all these different index fields. What if we spend our time in our rental software or in our finance package or on a spreadsheet or in our email, but we always need to check documents as well as we're working? What we don't want to do is come out of DocuWare, come out of where we're working, go to DocuWare, log in, go to the search bar, put the field in. How can we make that easier? One of the things DocuWare has is what's called a highlight search. Here, if I come back to this RM environment, I can highlight this order number. All I'm going to do is click a little keyboard shortcut that I've got. What that will do then is it will copy that number. It will then look in DocuWare, run a search on any documents that have been indexed with that number and open up a window to show me that. If it was one individual document, it would just open up the document itself. Here we've got a few different ones with that order number, so then I can just click on the one I want to look at and it will open it up. I can see the document, all the stamps. We can see the journey it took in chronological order if we want to here. So again, about those, something that currently takes minutes becoming seconds, DocuWare is really powerful in that way. I've done that here working from within this demo environment. This could be someone emails you, you highlight the invoice number, do exactly the same, and it will bring that up for you. So I talk a lot about micro efficiencies, okay? Those small marginal gains throughout the day. If you've got 5 people in finance and they're all getting those benefits, what else could they be doing with that time and how valuable could that be for you as well, okay? So we've talked about searching. The last part to touch on DocuWare, I'm aware this is a lot of information to take in. So we've taken our documents on our journey. We've been able to go and find them later on. The last thing we want to talk about is forms, okay? So you can have forms for credit application forms, customer application forms. I've just got this one open here that we use quite a lot, which is a new supplier form. Again, the form is completely customizable to you. You say, what do you want to include? Do you really need a fax number? You know, things like that. So we will look at the document, we'll work with you to structure a form that gathers all the information you need. We can do sequential numbering. We can create mandatory fields so you don't end up with that half completed form that you end up with a load of backwards and forwards. We can add field masks so we make sure people put the correct number of digits in rather than missing information off. We can also, you know, steer behavior here. I want a senior contact to be filling this in. I don't want just the work experience person to be filling that in. You can see we can grey out to date so people can't backdate forms. We can also include simple signatures as well. Another thing that's really powerful with the forms is that they are dynamic. Depending on what I answer, will open up additional parts of the form. This takes away those big, cumbersome forms where if yes, go to B, if no, go to D, but make sure you fill out 36C, all those kind of things that we're used to on forms. Depending on what I answer, will only ask me the relevant questions based on that. If it's not relevant, I don't see it. If I'm completing this new supplier application, I'm only supplying goods, that's fine, I can carry on. But actually, if I'm going to work at height, all of a sudden, I need to upload my insurance documents, I need to upload my accreditations, and really good for from a DocuWare perspective is I want to record when the expiry date is. Remember those lists I showed earlier where documents in a certain status? We can use those lists to say, show me all the insurance documents that are going to expire in the next 60 days. So then you've got a list of documents to make sure you follow up with your suppliers and you don't end up with suppliers where you're not covered and things like that as well. So depending on what I select, will show me different parts of these forms. We can upload images, we can manage deadlines, loads of really powerful stuff we can do. All you do is you send this URL out to whoever you want to fill out the form. You could host it on your website as a button. Once they submit that, the form goes through the same kind of validations and approvals you've just seen with all those invoices that I processed. Gives you better control of the data you're getting in and more control of the approval process and auditability of the approval process once your forms have been submitted as well. Okay, that is your whistle-stop tour of automated invoice processing in DocuWare today. So we've talked about capturing from email, data capture from those documents, the ability to validate, match and check that information without the need for a person to intervene unless it requires that specialist knowledge. And then the posting of that data over into your rental system or finance package, taking away all that time-consuming manual data entry. We've then got the ability to search for documents within DocuWare or from outside of DocuWare. And we've got other things like the audit trails and the digital forms that just really boost that functionality we've got in DocuWare. So I hope that's been useful. I hope that's got you thinking about how you work at the moment and the processes you're following and hopefully where you'll be able to save some time when you're working at the moment. So thank you very much. And hopefully, Andy, we've got some questions that have come in.
We certainly do. We certainly do. So looking at these questions, we can see we have a nice one from Tim. He's actually mentioned the forms that you just have there. He said the forms look really interesting. Is there other things we can use these forms for as well? They seem to have lots of paper documents flying around their business, and I think he's picturing maybe digitizing some of those.
Yeah, and what's great about them is we don't just have, here's 10 forms, which one do you want? They're all unique to each opportunity. So I've talked about finance examples there. We do employee onboarding. We do fleet checks for people who have vehicles. Anything, like you say, Andy, where somebody is currently filling out a paper, a PDF or a Word form, DocuWare forms are really useful for that. I mean, we've all filled out one of those Word forms where you put a word in too long and the entire formatting shifts and you don't know what to do next. So DocuWare are really great for replacing those things. So yeah, tons of use cases. Whatever someone needs, we'll be able to configure a form to do that.
Brilliant. There's one here from Rashid, quite an interesting one. He said they actually use Google rather than Microsoft for their emails and things, and sometimes systems struggle to integrate with that product quite as well. Is that an issue for you guys? And if not, he'd like to speak to you.
Yes, yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I'm actually dealing with a requirement at the moment for a rental company who use Gmail for their emails. So yes, I showed Outlook in my example because that is the mail client I use, but the monitoring of a mailbox, the ability to pull documents in, the ability to automatically send documents out, all of that is also possible using a Google client as well.
Okay, we've got one, and apologies, your name's come up as Davis, so I presume I've got your surname rather than your first name. So apologies for not knowing your first name. But the question is, this looks great. How long does it take to get it installed, and will it cause a lot of disruption?
Good question. How available are you? Is that usually? So we would, in terms of implementation, we can respond very quickly in terms of getting you up and running. One of the catch-22s of delivering a DocuWare project is you need DocuWare because you're really busy. So how available can you be to be on calls for us to do the scoping exercise? for you to test the system when we've built it, so you can play around with it and tell us you're happy with it before you go live. So I would, typically we're talking a couple of months, something like that, from an order to going live. But really that comes down to how available you can be, and we want to be as sympathetic and mindful to that. So what we want to do is deliver the project alongside your other work with as little disruption as possible. Our team are incredibly experienced, so other than giving us access to your email client, things like that, we don't really tend to need much IT involvement. Yeah, we will very much hold your hand through that process. So yeah, pretty quick in terms of software implementations, and we always aim to cause as little disruption as possible.
Thank you, Nicky. Tim has just put in probably my favourite question that I've heard this week, to be fair. So, Tim, thank you very much. And actually, I think you're probably mirroring. You're probably one of the few honest people that has asked this question outright, rather than mirroring some of the people's thoughts that don't want to ask the question. His question, and I will literally read it the way he's written it. The MD's pushing us to use more of this AI thingy. Can we do that? So I love the question, mate.
Oh man, I could take up the next 25 minutes answering this question. I really could. I think that, Tim, that really rings true. Lots of people, senior people, are saying, what are we doing with AI? What are we doing with AI, right? And what's really interesting about that is that the typical approach to procuring software has been problem first, solution next. As in, I have a business problem, I need a solution to fix it. With AI, especially coming from leadership, I want an AI solution, and you go, why? Oh, I don't know. We just really need AI, right? So that's what you've got to think about, is rather than diving into AI, what are your actual problems, and does it need AI to solve it? Maybe it's internal process, maybe automation based on rules is totally fine. You don't need AI. What you can see, what's really good about DocuWare, and what I really appreciate about DocuWare's approach to AI, is they haven't just flung a load of features to market. What they're taking is kind of a methodical, security first approach to AI, where we're looking at where is their actual value to AI, and can we deliver that securely as well? Because everybody wants AI until you tell them you're going to put all your own data in a secret black box that nobody knows where it lives, and you don't know who access to it, right? What DocuWare are doing is making sure that data is secure at the same time. I think the capture example is a really good example of that. We train it on your own data. Yeah, AI has some intelligence, there's some more advanced features we can do, but we're using your own data, so it's not learning from loads of other people's documents at the same time. But what it does give you is that much more streamlined view, where intelligent indexing will say, you've told me in the past that it should be in these places, and I'll try and find it there. What AI says is, you've told me in the past it should be in one of these 20 places. I'll try and remember that. And if I can't find it, probably based on the logic of those 20 places, it might also be here, right? It's just taking that a little step further. So by all means, go back to the business and say, I've got an AI tool that can really help us. Because that data capture element that we talked about there with invoices, it could be sales orders, it could be incoming job applications, it could be quality and testing certificates. People doing any manual data entry, that is a really nice quick win for AI to help your business. When it comes to other uses of AI, that's something we can explore and see where the real value is, not just telling the shareholders we're using AI at the country club, as I think some of it is driven by. So as I say, I could talk about this all day, but that's my summary answer.
Still my favourite question, Tim. Thank you so much for that. It's really put a smile on my face. I've got another question here. This one's from Michelle. She has said, we use Syrinx in our business for quite a lot of our processes. Is there a way that the two systems can work together?
Yeah, great question. And again, when I do my demo and I show MCS, it's because they've kindly given me a demo environment to use, but we do also integrate with the other rental packages out there, including Syrinx. Even if you're on premise or cloud, you've got lots of options available for the integration. This is talking about rental today. We implement DocuWare for any kind of organization you can think of. So every finance package that's out there, ERP systems, CRMs, in terms of integrating, yeah, we've got tons of experience in that area. So yeah, really good question about Syrinx, but also regardless of what system you're using, if it can be integrated with, we can integrate with it.
Perfect. That brings us to the end of our questions today. However, I have one further question, if that's okay, Nicky. I've seen from some of those questions that have come in, there's some great value that you can offer sort of people, but certainly my experience has been the best way to find out how much value you can offer to a business is to get on a bit of a personalized call and spend a bit of time just chatting with them specifically. So I guess my question to you, Nicky, is for the people on today's call, when they'd like to do that, how do they get in contact with you?
There you go. Yeah, so, and as Andy said, it's really important that we do that discovery work. So what I will do is ask you a million questions about your career. How do you work at the moment? What are the problems that causes for you? How many people does it affect? What are you losing in efficiency? What are the risks associated with it, right? Lots of questions around how you work. We also do process mapping. So we will map out your existing process, the DocuWare process alongside it. So it's really clear to you the achievements the improvements that you're going to get with DocuWare. You can see my contact details on the screen there. Please give me a call, drop me an email. I'm happily set up one of those discovery calls. We could also do a subsequent demo where you can ask specific questions. You can stop me talking non-stop for half an hour during the demo and pick out the questions you've got. Yeah, more than happy to help. It's very a consultative approach we take to selling. We want to make sure that DocuWare is the right fit for you and that you understand the benefits it's going to bring.
Brilliant. Well, guys, hopefully you've taken some good value. I know I've certainly learned a couple of things today. So hopefully that's the same for everyone on today's call. So hopefully everyone will join me in thanking Nicky for her time and obviously some great explanations and a really, really great demo today. So thank you very much for that, Nicky. As Nicky said, her contact details are all right there on the screen for you. So please don't be shy. She's really nice. Pick up the phone. She won't bite or equally drop her an email if we're a little bit shyer. That's absolutely fine as well. Guys, that does bring us towards the end of today's demo. I will stick around just for a couple of minutes in case any questions do come in, and of course we'll pop those answers into the boxes for you there as well. But failing that, thank you very much for everyone for their time today. Hope you have a wonderful day, and again, if you do need absolutely anything, please reach out to Nicky. Her contact details are right there on the screen for us. Thanks very much, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.